Hello and welcome to my guide in merching an old school RuneScape. Before we can get started on how to merch, you first have to learn the different types of merches there are. The first type is long-term investment, which is hanging on to an item or multiple items for a long time until it increases in value and then selling it at the higher value. The second kind of merching is margin flipping, which is buying items at the lower margin and immediately selling them at a higher margin. The third type is merching from an update, which is buying supplies before an update and then selling them after the update when they're in much higher demand. And the last type is clan merching, or when a group buys out the entire market to manipulate a price of a certain item. In this video, we're going to be talking about long-term investment. There's a lot of questions to ask for merching this way, like how much money do I spend, or how much of the item am I buying, or what item do I buy most importantly. But hopefully in this video I'm able to answer all of those questions and more that you didn't even think of. The first thing to think about is when to invest. You should only invest when you have a lot of money on hand and you're not saving up money for something you need in the near future. And a lot of money is relative, so even if you don't think you have enough money to invest into something, you may still invest into something and get a little bit of profit out of it. The item that you want to invest to is not randomly picked. The item you invest into is dependent on how much money you want to spend on that investment. So once you have your money that you want to invest, there's 3 things you have to look for in an item before you invest into it. The things you have to look at in an item are how much it costs, how much of that item is traded a day, and how much the price of that item fluctuates within a given time. Looking at the item's price fluctuation is probably the most important part of it for merching. If you look at the price of an item over a month, or even over a quarter, and it doesn't change at all, then the item is useless for merching. OSBuddy's exchange website is a great tool for looking up prices over months and quarters. To see how all 3 of the categories for merching an item work together, let's look at an item that I merched in the past for successful profit. The item that I merched off of was oranges. Now let's look at this graph for the orange price fluctuation over a month. As you can see by the graph, the prices of oranges fluctuates all the time. It allowed me to buy oranges at 50 gold each, and then a week later sell them at 100 gold each. Now let's also look at the graph for how many oranges were sold per day. This number is important because it allows you to gauge how well you could affect the market with your own investment. The amount traded per day has to be high enough so people are willing to spend more on the item, also so you don't sit on a huge inventory without selling it. But the amount sold also has to be low enough for the item price to change regularly. Items like coal and nature runes sell hundreds of thousands per day, so the item price stays relatively the same over a long period of time. So if you look at oranges, on average, there's about 20,000 oranges sold per day. So the demand is high enough that people buy it every day, but it's also low enough that you can manipulate the price all by yourself. And when you invest into an item, you want to buy the average amount traded per day. So in this case, you would buy 20,000 oranges to invest into. So when I invested into oranges, they were 50 gold each. So I bought 20,000 at 50 gold each. That was 1,000,000 gold. And then a week later, they turned to 100 gold each. So I made 1,000,000 gold profit in 1 week by doing nothing. And that's pretty good if you ask me. If you look back at the amount traded graph, you could see huge spikes in random places. Those are actually people dropping off their whole supply of items when they merch. So you could actually see if an item's merched regularly. So now it's your turn to try searching for your own item to merch. So when looking for an item, you're going to want to pick an item in your price range. Maybe you want to buy items that are 100 gold each, maybe 5 gold each, maybe thousands of gold each. So that's up to what your budget is and how much of the item you actually need to buy to merch. You can merch very expensive things such as Barrow's armor, but you're going to need a lot of money and you're going to need to buy a lot of that armor to merch off of. But the best thing to merch off of is something people don't think about, like oranges. Something people use all the time, but they don't think about using them. And stuff that's used up and also gained all the time. So there's constant fluctuation in the market. It may take a while, but just search the OSBuddy exchange for items. Just keep on looking for items in your price range and items that aren't traded that much, but just enough that you can buy enough of them to affect the market. Anything you can do to make money off of. Now once you find the item that you can make money off of, You also have to ask yourself if it's the right time to merge into it at that moment. The current price of the item should be near the bottom of its trends rather than near the top, so you could actually make some money off of that item. This may seem obvious, but sometimes you may jump the gun on when to invest on something, and then lose a bit of money potentially on what you could have bought it for. When you buy your item to merch, make sure you put enough money aside to actually merch on it, and not hinder your own character and what you can do while you're merching. For example, don't sell all of your melee armor just to be able to afford to merch on something. And you should also realize that when you're merching, it's not guaranteed money. Anything can happen. The item can skyrocket up and you get tons of money, but you could also flop horribly and you could lose all of your money. But if the item does flop and it's something that is in demand, you probably won't lose out on too much money. You just will lose a little bit, but that'll just set you back a little bit. There's a different kind of long-term investment that's putting an item in the grand exchange for extremely high price. Now this isn't a consistent moneymaker. This is just throwing something like a treasure trail item in the grand exchange for a high price, hoping someone will buy it eventually, and you get a lot of profit compared to just selling it for the regular price. And there's also the opposite of this, which is buying a ton of items that are low value and putting them at an even lower value, such as 1 coin each, hoping someone will sell it at that low price, trying to sell it quicker, but then you actually gain a much better offer on it. Hopefully this video helped you go in the right direction to merch like a pro. And just remember, you may not get the hold of it right away, so take baby steps and do small investments first, and then work your way up for large investments for big profit. Thank you for watching. If you want more RuneScape guides like this one, make sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you next time.